Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. 'Tis the season to find holiday music in SuperScore. My name is George Litterst. For those of you who do not know me, I am a pianist and music educator. I live in a little town of Rehoboth, Massachusetts, a bit south of Boston and a little bit east of Providence, Rhode Island. And I know we have people who are signed up today from all parts of the world. Some of you I know will be viewing the webinar by delay. But for those of you who are here live, I'd appreciate it if you would offer a greeting in the chat area, and that way we can all see who's here and where you're from. And thank you, Dean, for letting us know you're here from Tennessee today. Welcome. We have not only the chat area that you can interact with today, but I want to call your attention also to the fact that there is a Q&A button. And as the webinar progresses, if you have any questions, whether they're technical questions about SuperScore or maybe I went too fast over a point and you want clarification or something else, why don't you put it in the Q&A? That ends up in a different window on my screen, and it's a little bit easier for me to manage. And in the case of certain questions that may arise that are better answered later in the presentation, I can keep track of them there without having to scroll back through a long list of chat comments. So thank you in advance for using that as necessary, and greetings to Melody from Ottawa and Frank from Durham, Peter from the United Kingdom, David from Phoenix, and Carol from Ireland. Wonderful. So we're going to be talking about Christmas music today. Out here in my area, my colleagues and myself are not really ready for Christmas yet. I'm still focused on the Thanksgiving holiday that's taking place this week. But of course, as musicians, we know that when a moment like Christmas or the winter December holidays come up, you have to plan your music in advance or you won't be ready when the time comes. So I appreciate the fact that you're able to focus on this a little bit early before the season is actually upon us. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview and then dive right into things because we have a lot to cover today. So first of all, I represent Time Warp Technologies, a music software company that you can find on the web at timewarptech.com. We are the producers of Classroom Maestro, an app that so many of you teachers have used very heavily through the pandemic and since. It's available for Mac and PC. It's an interactive musical blackboard that's intelligent, that enables you very quickly to illustrate scales, intervals, key signatures, chords, chord progressions, and so much more. Home Concert Extreme is an interactive MIDI file player that actually responds to your playing if you're playing on a MIDI keyboard. Internet MIDI is an application like Classroom Maestro and Home Concert that will work on Mac and PC, and it connects any two MIDI keyboards together over the internet. SuperScore is uniquely an application for the iPad, and that is the application that we're going to be focused on today. SuperScore is a free download from the App Store on the iPad, and once you have it installed, if you are new to it, and you've gone through the process of opening up a sample score that comes with the program, you are all set and ready to dive into Christmas music, which you will find in the store inside of SuperScore. So what are the things that we'll be talking about today? You know, the music that comes out of the Christian Christmas tradition is really quite remarkable in terms of its breadth and historical depth. We can go back nine centuries, or maybe I'm off, maybe it's 11 centuries to the 12th century, and find the tune O Come, Emmanuel. What Child Is This comes from the 16th century England. Of course, it didn't start off as a Christmas tune. It was a love ballad, but the tune itself goes back quite a ways, as does the tune Good King Wenceslas. So much of the music with which we're familiar in this season comes from the 19th century. Silent Night, a wonderful piece that was written in response to an organ that had broken down and service that needed to be accompanied on a guitar. Hark the Herald Angels, Jolly Old St. Nicholas. And then in contemporary times, which I'm defining as 20th and 21st centuries for this purpose, there's a lot of music as well, a good bit of which does not appear in many piano methods because it's copyrighted music for which additional royalties have to be paid. But you'll be impressed to see just how much of that material is actually now available in SuperScore, and we'll get into that today. So we're going to be covering an amazing variety of music that fits a whole variety of needs. Music for beginners, even beginners who may be not yet reading music on the grand staff. And you see an example here in the iPad from More Christmas Piano Solos, a method from the Hal Leonard Student Library. Musical material for beginners that has wonderful teacher accompaniments that could be played by a parent or somebody with modest keyboard skills. Tunes that have been arranged specifically to coordinate with concepts that are simultaneously being taught in piano methods, such as the Joy of Christmas series that coordinates with the Piano Safari method. It's got 4 levels of Christmas music. We have access through SuperScore to a wonderful multi-level collection of student duets from Carol Matz, published by Alfred. These are duets that are designed for 2 students who are at the same playing level. And there's 5 levels of these. They could also be used by a student who's got, let's say, an older sibling who is a good sight reader and is willing to play at a little bit lower level to play along with the younger sibling. There's music in jazzy styles. You're seeing one here from an arrangement from Bradley Sowash. I'm sure many of you know his name. Wonderful solos that can be played by a professional musician or an expert teenager, perhaps at a festive occasion or recital, or even in church. And we have music for keyboard ensembles, which are a wonderful opportunity for getting together a whole bunch of students all in one place, playing on digital instruments with a variety of sounds and coordinating their musicianship together. And we'll be looking at some of those. I mentioned we'll be talking about copyrighted tunes as well, and tunes that have an amazing backing tracks for which we have all of the necessary virtual instruments built right into SuperScore. And you can play along on an acoustic piano that lacks those backing track instruments, and SuperScore can provide them for you. So I've got one question already. Where is home? I get stuck on open a score page. So we're going to switch right over now to SuperScore, and hopefully I can answer that question as we go along. So I'm going to share my iPad on the screen. And right now you're seeing a Christmas tune, an arrangement by Bradley Sowash on the screen. If you're already an experienced SuperScore user, you know that to open a score, you go to the folder button in the upper left corner, which is your gateway to your library. And normally you would navigate your library by tapping on My Albums and going down through the albums that you have purchased. And as you can see, in my case, I've purchased a lot of them. And you would tap on whatever album you wish to open, and then you can choose what you want to play inside there. Dean, to answer your question, If you're not seeing scores in My Albums, you perhaps have just installed SuperScore on your iPad and you don't have anything other than the sample files. And so if you tap on the score library, that should take you to a folder called sample scores, and you can go into any one of these sample scores, open up a piece, and once you've got a piece open, then everything is going to become available to you. And at that point, everybody's got a button, which is a shopping cart button in the upper left corner, and that will take you to the store. So I'd like to just start by showing you how you would find Christmas music in the store, and then we're going to take a look at quite a variety of offerings. We did some really great updates to SuperScore in this last year, one of which was to add a search feature, and you'll notice that there is a magnifying glass at the top of the window, and when you tap on that magnifying glass, you can type in a search query. So I could type in, for example, Christmas, and as you can see, a ton of Christmas albums or albums that have at least one Christmas piece in them have come up. Now, this is not actually the best way to search for Christmas music. There's another way, which I'm going to show you, but just allow me to explain what this search feature does when you use the magnifying glass. If you type in a word such as Christmas, the search will search all album titles that have the word Christmas in it, and the contents of all albums, meaning the scores, which have the word Christmas in them. But it's possible that you might miss an album that is about Christmas music that doesn't have the word Christmas in either the album title or in a piece title, and so you would miss it if you just did the search. So I'm going to say we're done with our search. If you knew exactly which publisher you were looking for, you could, of course, whoa, I just tapped the wrong thing and got out of SuperScore there. Sorry about that. And it's going to take us back to the store here. You can tap on a publisher and go right there, but that's great if you already know who the publisher is of the material you're looking for. What I want to call your attention to is there's a Browse Categories button at the upper left area, and inside there are all kinds of categories for things you can look for, but right near the top is Christmas. And it's divided into subsections of Christmas Ensemble, and we're just getting refreshed through the internet here, so not all of the images have come through yet. There's Christmas solos and duets, and you can find these things just by going to one of those categories. So, having looked at that, let's come back and look at some actual pieces. The one that I have on the screen comes from a collection by Bradley Sowash. He publishes under his own name, Bradley Sowash Music. He's got 2 volumes, books 1 and 2, called A Jazzy Christmas. And you can see, for example, what the titles are for this particular one that we are looking at. And it's arranged for student and teacher. It's got a count off at the beginning. Most of the way through I'll be skipping the count offs, but I'll just play it here to show you what that's like. And so forth. It's a really nice arrangement. Teacher would have a lot of fun playing this along with the student. Student part is not particularly difficult. This is a good moment to just show you a few little SuperScore features that would interact on a piece like this. In the upper right corner, we've got a parts menu, and if you want to turn off the display of that duet part, well, the student can not bother to see the teacher part when learning the piece. That's a nice thing. The student can also put down 2 fingers and spread and make the music bigger. Everything gets reformatted to whatever comfortable reading size is needed. I can bring back the duet part if I wish. There's also the option here to turn off the playback of any one of these parts. So if you just want to play your own part and not the teacher part, or vice versa, you have those opportunities as well. So there's a lot of great music from arrangements from Bradley Sowash in a jazzy style in these 2 albums, and they're at a somewhat elementary level. So why don't we stick with the elementary level? Well, actually, we'll stick with Bradley for just a moment. Take a look at, he's got a number of pieces published as solos as well. God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen is an example of this. If we look at the parts menu, we can see this is just that, a piano solo. There's no accompaniment to it. And let's take a little listen. And not surprisingly, this is from Bradley Sowash, and so it is in a jazzy style. He indicates that the 8th note should be played in a swing manner, which you hear, of course, in the recording. And I found actually that these recordings have been especially helpful to my students when they're learning a piece that has rhythms that they're not used to. I mean, if a student has been largely focused on classical music and suddenly is faced with a piece that suggests that they should be playing swing 8th notes, they can get a feel for what that is supposed to sound like when they use the playback feature in SuperScore. And in this case, Bradley Sowash himself actually recorded the parts. Here's another elementary album. This is published by Hal Leonard. The arrangements are all by Lee Evans. I should go back to the cover to show you what the tunes are inside this album. It's a very nice collection. Lee recorded these pieces along with his good buddy Paul Sheftel. They're both down in New York, and this is what It Came Upon a Midnight Clear sounds like. So we have some nice jazz harmonies in this piece as well. I'm going to turn off the display of the teacher part for just a moment and make the notation a little bit bigger and show you that if you had a MIDI capable piano connected, or your student does, the student has an opportunity to go into what's known as learn mode. And in learn mode, the application, SuperScore, will wait for the student to play every note on time. And I should be connected to my keyboard, but let me just double check. Looks like I'm connected to Bluetooth, so we'll give that a try. The program is waiting for me to play. If I play a wrong note, it won't advance. And as I play my note, you can hear the accompaniment is coming in as well. We do have an option in the lower right corner to tap the speaker button and just turn off anything that's considered to be accompaniment. And we could go through a note reading exercise here without the distraction of an accompaniment if we wanted to do so. Focusing here just at the beginning on relatively beginning level material, I should let you know that the Music for Young Children series in their Moonbeams 3 level, which is their final level, the Music for Children system is set up for very young kids. They have an album which is devoted to solos and ensemble pieces, much of which are from the Christmas season, and or I should say the December holiday season, because I'm going to show you a couple of pieces here that aren't Christmas at all. Here we have a Chag Purim. It's a traditional Hebrew tune, and I like this actually a little faster than the default setting here, so I'm going to move up the tempo a little bit. This is kind of a fun one because it's intended to accelerate. So you get faster as you approach the end, which makes that particular one a lot of fun. Here's another one that's very nice. Again, that's one that I prefer at a somewhat faster tempo than the default. Let's listen to a touch of this one, the Dreidel song. It's nice the way the melody switches from the right hand to the left hand. And it's also nice to note that kids who've gone through the Music for Young Children series, and by, depending on when they started, by age 5, 6, or 7, have gotten to this playing level is a very encouraging sign. Let's take a look at a wonderful album called The Joy of Christmas Book 1. It's Book 1 out of 4 books in progressive order that coordinate with the piano safari method. These are the tunes that are in Book 1. And we'll take a look at Jingle Bell Jazz. It's got quite a good teacher accompaniment. That's a fun spot right there with those triplet quarter notes all of a sudden. It's a wonderful arrangement by Sean Parsons. And here's another one. At the moment, I'm showing just the student part, but we can turn on the teacher part. I'm going to pause it there. So I wanted to play both of these pieces from this album to show you that the number of styles that are incorporated into the album is really quite remarkable. They're not all in a jazzy style such as the first one that I played for you, but they're all very engaging and very imaginatively done. And again, that makes for very good holiday recital material for sure. Here's another album that it's actually a brand new one. I believe it's the first of a number to come. So this is Christmas Level 1 from Harbridge Publishing House. And one of the fun things about this, in addition to the pieces that it contains, is the fact that there is some additional content I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button here, that are pencil activities. And traditionally in a printed book you would do this with pencil and crayon and things like that. But if you wanted in SuperScore to go through this maze here and figure your way through, you could use the markup feature of SuperScore and start and enter this maze. I better not go to the left, I'll go to the right. I'm going to go down here. Whoops. Let's finish that drawing, and then over here I'm going to continue my journey. No, that was the wrong thing to do. I shouldn't have done that. I guess I better just delete everything here and start my maze all over again. Anyway, you can see you would have fun with an album like this. There's note spelling activities that are involved, a word search, the Night Before Christmas poem, and then there's the music itself. And here's a little bit of Jingle Bells with a teacher accompaniment. It's an arrangement that's designed for somebody who's really barely started their piano study, and they would have a lot of fun in this album. So we've been dealing primarily at this point with music at a fairly elementary level, bit of a range so far, but more or less at an elementary level. And I wanted to show you an alternative approach, which would be one in which we have two students at the same level who can play along together. These are the titles that are available in this album called Famous and Fun Christmas Duets Book 1 from Alfred, and there are 5 levels in this series, all of which are arrangements by Carol Matz. And not only has she done her arrangements such that there are equal levels of difficulty between the primo and the secondo, but she's done a very nice job in making sure that both parts are fully engaging all the way through. In other words, everybody's going to get a chance to play the tune here or there. So we'll see how this works out. So you saw how the tune went from the primo down to the secondo, back up to the primo, and there'll be another change or so as we go along. Shelley is saying that she can only see the Joy of Christmas books 3 and 4 in the store. Shelley, I'm going to guess without knowing for certain that possibly you don't have the latest SuperScore installed on your iPad. You might want to check that. As time goes on, we develop newer features in our notation engine that require a later version of SuperScore, and then certain things don't become available if you don't have that later version installed. I'd have to go back and check my notes to see if that's actually the case with this series. But the other thing you could do would be to restart your iPad, go back to the store, and maybe something didn't get fully refreshed. But there should be volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the Joy of Christmas series there. Okay, that was We Three Kings. Here's another one, Up on the Housetop. So the arrangement is as full as it could be for 2 students at this level. I think it's really done very nicely in the same manner as the previous one that I showed you. But now that we're talking about this equal part duet concept, let's skip up several levels to Book 5. Again, these are published by Alfred. And in Book 5, these are the titles: Dance to the Sugar Plum Fairy, Joy to the World. You can see them here on the screen. And I'll show you the Ukrainian Bell Carol. And so forth. Of course, that particular piece in any arrangement has always been one of the biggest crowd pleasers, so to speak, amongst my students over the years. And I think this arrangement for two students at an intermediate to maybe even upper intermediate level is especially engaging. Now, also published by Alfred, arranged by Carol Matz, is a 5-level series just called Famous and Fun Christmas. The previous series was Famous and Fun Christmas Duets. This is Famous and Fun Christmas. In level 5, you can see there's quite a long list of titles. And let's take a listen to Ding Dong Merrily on High. And I should mention in this one, by the way, you might wonder, why is there a count off? We don't have an accompaniment here. But a student might want to practice one hand while playing the other. And you can turn on and off the playback of one hand or the other. And that learn mode feature of waiting for you to play the right note, that can be turned on or off for either hand. And so if you're going to play one hand while SuperScore plays the other, having a count off to get you into it is, of course, a very helpful thing. Nice piece with some wonderful 16th note passages, and Carol's very good with fingering, putting in just the fingers that you need without cluttering the music with a lot of unnecessary finger numbers. And these arrangements just work out very, very well. So we have the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Now, this is not an Alfred publication. It is an arrangement by Carol. She also publishes under her own name, Carol Matz Piano, and you can find this album as a single, and the piece is also available in a Nutcracker collection that she publishes. And it's, again, a very well done arrangement. And so she does a lot of very nice things in terms of choosing the right range on the keyboard for different parts of the piece, simulating that celesta at the beginning and the bassoon a little bit later on. Again, nicely done by Carol Matz. So we've been moving our way up in solos to increasingly difficult pieces. I'd like to show you a solo that's published by Andrew Harbridge and Harbridge Publishing House. This is the first Noel. And I should point out to you that when we get into the higher level pieces, they're typically recorded the way they are intended to be played in a concert situation, at least by the person who's interpreting it as he records it. And in this case, the arranger Andrew Harbridge recorded the piece, and you notice that ebb and flow of the tempo. That's one of the unique things about SuperScore, is that we can capture human performance that speeds up and slows down, and yet we go with traditional music notation where everything is mathematically rigid. There are always 3 beats, 3 quarter notes in 3/4 time in every measure, but we stretch and compress musical time as we play, which of course is why we call my software company Time Warp Technologies, because I've always thought of music performance as being a time warping experience. Now Andrew's done something special in this arrangement. In the upper right corner of the screen next to the Parts button, you'll notice there's a film strip button. And I'm going to tap on that and we'll hear a little bit of a video. I don't know how well going from the video coming off of the internet into my iPad, then going into Zoom is going to come out, but if you accessed it on your iPad, it would be very good. It's intended to be an inspirational video for the person learning the piece, but he's also set it up in a way that you could start your playing when you see a certain moment in the video, and then rather freely coordinate your playing to the video and actually project this during your performance. So I'll show you a little bit of it. So some rather inspiring, moving images of this great planet Earth on which we live, for which we need to be giving thanks repeatedly throughout the year. And so in any case, in his commentary that comes with this, he talks about where you would look in the video to know this is where I should start playing, and how you would stay with it if you were projecting the video. And of course, you'd be memorizing the performance for sure. I see another question has come up in the Q&A. Dean has asked about the SuperScore store telling her that some of her previous purchases have been updated. And we do update things from time to time. Sometimes we notice that something needs to be corrected because it was just missed in proofreading, or we've made some kind of an improvement in an album. And so when that happens, if you were signed in to your iPad with the same ID that you used when you purchased the music, you can tap on the update, and Apple will, which Apple handles the e-commerce, Apple will start a new purchase for you, and immediately in that process notice, whoa, you've bought this before, and then put a message on the screen saying, would you like to get it again for free? And of course you tap on yes, and then the album gets updated. The only time you would ever be charged a second time would be if you threw away your old Apple ID and you started all over again with your new Apple ID, in which case your previous purchase is not associated with your current ID. So you do need to be aware of that, and of course most people properly just stay with the same ID all the way through, which is the simple thing to do. Okay, we're going to move ahead to another fairly advanced piece. This is a wonderful arrangement by Leela Viss, who publishes under the name of 88 Piano Keys of Go Tell It on the Mountain. To my ear, it seems like the screen sharing through Zoom has allowed for a little disruption into the rhythmic flow there. So I apologize if it seemed bumpy to you. It is not a bumpy performance quite like that. So in any case, that's a bit of Go Tell It on the Mountain by Leela Viss. And here's another piece. It's not Christmas per se, but it's for the winter season, Winter Window Frost. I thought I would play a bit of this for you. And so forth. So that's some of Winter Frost. Back to the Joy of Christmas. And if you'll forgive me, I'm just going to take a moment and reinitialize the screen sharing here, because I have this feeling that things have gotten a little bumpy for some technical reason through the screen sharing, and I don't want that to continue if we can avoid that. So here we go again, sharing my iPad. So we're now talking about higher level pieces. We're back to the Joy of Christmas series, Book 4. Angels we have heard on high, away in a manger, deck the halls, O come, Silent Night, Joy to the World, and Wexford Carol are the tunes in this book. And here is a bit of Deck the Halls. I'm going to pause it there and just tell you anecdotally that I had an adult student of mine who is, I think, in her late 70s, who's played piano all her life, bought this album recently, and we started working on Deck the Halls together. And although she's had quite a bit of playing experience, she's not remembering having seen anything in 12/8 time before. And this gave us a wonderful opportunity to talk about compound time and how the beat is always divided into 3 parts, and the fact that the time signature really isn't telling us anything about how many beats there are in a measure. It's telling us how many subdivisions of the beat there are. And we've got these wonderful syncopations going on in the right hand, and when you hear the piece in this arrangement nicely played, of course those rhythms just seem to come together so naturally, yet if you were to mathematically figure it out, it seems a little bit complicated. And when you look down in the lower right corner at measure 12, 13, 14, either hand by itself looks so straightforward, but then you try to line things up together and you wonder, well, what's going on there? And then you listen to it and you think, wow, that's not so hard. What is that all about? So this was a lot of nice fodder for getting into a whole variety of rhythmic issues and getting a really good learning opportunity out of that. There's also the change to 9/8 time for one measure. And she also had some questions for me. What's this B flat doing here in the key of C? And as it turns out, well, there's a bit of the Mixolydian mode in this arrangement. And sure enough, if you go over to the area here where we get into the key of F, where we expect to see just one flat. We also see an E flat in places. And the idea of the Mixolydian mode is it's basically a major scale with a flatted 7th degree. So we get it there, and later on when we go to the key of C, we get some, the key of D, we get some D naturals, which are the flatted 7th degree of the scale. So with a lot of these Christmas pieces, there's a lot of great musical issues behind the scenes that are well worth talking about, besides just getting to the joy of playing the pieces themselves. In another style, here's another piece from level 4. And with this very same student I was discussing, we've been doing a lot of work over the last few months in terms of chords and learning about secondary dominance and how to identify what's really going on in a particular passage. And I can't wait for her to start learning this piece, because this will lead us into some discussions about extended harmonies. It's got such a rich palette of ninths, chords, and other kinds of extended harmonies here, which give this really a very lush pastel quality. So I'd like to talk a little bit about ensemble pieces where you can get groups of students together to play music. One of the publishers in SuperScore is named Music Perceptions, and Music Experience Level C is one of the albums with Christmas music in it. And when you look at any one of the pieces, and we're about to take a little look at Over the River and Through the Woods, you can see there's a lot of activities associated with the piece that you go through first before attempting to play the piece. If you look very carefully up here, you can see this is the tuba part that we're about to get to. And then in SuperScore, there is the tuba part. You could play your part and hear the rest of it as you do it. And every other part, like the drum kit and the banjo and the piano, they all have their own individual scores. And then there is a master score for the whole thing that the teacher would want to focus on and know how everybody's supposed to fit together. But like all the other arrangements that we've looked at, you could start with these full score and selectively mute parts. And this is a bit of what it sounds like. Here's another one, Deck the Halls. So you get a sense for what the level of difficulty is, and each student on a digital keyboard would be individually choosing the sound that they're supposed to play, whether it's French horn or piano or drum kit, and playing accordingly. Let's take a look now at some commercial music. The Huron Carol, of course, is not a commercial tune, but in this album there are commercial tunes, all with wonderful backing tracks, and we're going to hear that a little bit here with the Huron Carol with pre-staff notation. What a wonderful tune that piece is. And it's presented in this book in traditional notation as well. And it would be the very same arrangement with the very same backing tracks, which you can see here are quite extensive. That's the pre-reading album. Now if we look at level 1 and look down here at the titles, you can see there are a number of contemporary copyrighted tunes in here. Blue Christmas, Do You Hear What I Hear, Frosty the Snowman, and so forth. We're going to look very briefly at Frosty. So I'll point out to you with this one at this level has a teacher accompaniment, and you could mute all of those backing tracks, and the student could go home and play along and hear just the teacher accompaniment. Alternatively, the student can have this more broad ensemble backing and enjoy it much the way they would have heard it. I want to say on the radio, but I'm not sure how many of our students listen to radio these days. They get their music from other sources. At level 2, here are some of the titles: A Holly Jolly Christmas, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, Let It Snow, Silver Bells, and so forth. Let's do a little bit of Let It Snow. As you can see, there's again quite a list of accompaniment instruments in this piece. At level 3, Christmas Time Is Here, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, Susie Snowflake, and more. And a bit of level 4. These are the titles, including the quite irreverent Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Here's some of Snowfall. A lot of very beautiful orchestrations going on there. At level 5, these are the titles that are included, and this one is especially peppy from the musical Mame, We Need a Little Christmas. Now, I've been playing these pieces for you from a custom collection that I made. I'm taking advantage of one of the features in SuperScore, which is that you can create a custom collection, and I called mine Christmas 2022. And I've just been going down the list here and playing the pieces that I had pre-selected to show you today. Now, a moment ago when I was talking about ensembles, I meant to switch over to an ensemble that I didn't put in the collection because I wanted to show you how it appears in my library. So I'm going to backtrack back into the area of ensembles, and we're going to go to, do a search for it here, Renaissance. This is the Renaissance Christmas Suite by Dennis Mauricio. It's really quite wonderful. It's got a very extensive PDF that talks about how to set these things up with digital keyboards. It's at a much higher level than the previous ensemble we were looking at. And you can see we've got the pieces Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella, Coventry Carol, Gloucestershire Wassail, I Saw Three Ships, in Dulce Jubilo, Sussex Carol, the Holly, and the Ivy. And with these pieces, you get all of the parts, the scores done several times, one for each instrument, and then there is the full orchestrated one as well. And so what I wanted to do was to bring up one of these. I'll just do Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella. So I'll go to the full score. So what I love about this album is that it's really unusual for our time, orchestrations that are hearkening back to a much earlier era. I mean, Renaissance times. Things sounded different back then. And Dennis Mauricio has just done an exceptionally wonderful job with that. He's published by Ogilvy Music, and if I go into my Ogilvy Music folder, I'll pull out another piece that he's arranged. He's done Away in a Manger, and I'm looking for Christmas Day is Here. So it's for quite a large ensemble. You can see one person's playing tubular bells, someone else's drum set, for French horns, harpsichord, strings, synth bass, trumpets, and so forth. In the full score, it looks like this, and you hear a lot of different familiar tunes coming in this work. So that's certainly a piece that will wake up the audience for sure. Well, we're really at the end of the hour here, and I'm sorry that I can't do justice to any one of these pieces, let alone any one of these albums, but I hope I've given you a pretty good overview of the things that are available. I'd like to conclude with some material from my really good friend and colleague, Christopher Norton. What am I doing? I want to be opening up this. Sorry, I have a hard time tapping and talking at the same time. He's published on his own under the name CN Connections, the Norton Connections series in SuperScore, but also he's published by Boosey and Hawkes, and we have an awful lot of his material from Boosey and Hawkes available, including 2 albums called Micro Jazz Christmas Collection. One is said to be for beginner to intermediate, and the next from intermediate to advanced. What's considered by Boosey and Hawkes to be beginner is, well, it's a little different from what I would say is a beginning album. To show you some of the titles, with Chris's material, you always get a ton of music in the album, and you can see there's quite a lot here. And his titles are rather fanciful because they're, in many cases, kind of well, rather than being an arrangement of a tune, they're offering a new piece that's inspired by a traditional tune. In this case, though, with What Child Is This, I think you'll recognize the tune rather readily. Now, they're a lot of fun to play with the backing tracks for sure, but they do stand alone as solo pieces without the backing tracks. And we'll conclude by taking a little look at the intermediate to advanced collection, so-called. Again, there's quite an extensive list of tunes. And I love his imaginative titles, Camel Stomp. You can imagine what that's based on. King Boogie, etc. In fact, here is Camel Stomp. And then we have a repeat. So it's a wonderful collection of material. Now, before I say goodbye today, I'd like to show you briefly something else on the Time Warp website. We're going to switch over my screen sharing to here. You're now should be seeing, hopefully, my web browser. Is that the case? I don't see a rectangle around it the way I expect to. Well, hopefully somebody will alert me if they're not seeing my web browser on the screen. On the Time Warp website, of course, you can get information about all of Time Warp's products. You can also browse the scores that are available in SuperScore, although you can't buy them on our website. They're only purchased inside of SuperScore. What I wanted to show you is that we have this resources section, which I've queued up over here for SuperScore, and it has webinars that we've done, SuperScore Guide to Graded Piano Literature and Exam Literature, some webinar we did with Christopher Norton, information on how to connect your iPad to a keyboard, various things like that. So a lot of things that are available there on the website for you. And to get to our website, you would find us, of course, at timewarptech.com, because we are Time Warp Technologies. So I will call the formal portion of the presentation to a conclusion at this point. I'm willing to stay around for a few minutes if anybody has any further questions. Dean, you had indicated a couple of things in the Q&A that seemed to be a little troublesome in your area. If you'd like to contact me directly afterwards, I'd be happy to zero in exactly what's going on with your iPad and make sure that everything gets set up there correctly. So I see you've put in a comment, I did. I don't know if that means that you were successful, but in any case, I hope you'll get back to me if not. Oh, you've written to me. Okay, so you and I will be in touch. So it's Wonderful to have this opportunity in SuperScore to work with such outstanding seasonal music from so many expert arrangers. And as a teacher, I really enjoy sharing all of this material with my students, and I feel as though all of my needs at all different levels of playing, from beginners to advanced, hobbyists in between, are met here because there have been so many fine publishers and expert pedagogues who've gone ahead and ventured into the 21st century and have decided to publish in this interactive format that we have here in SuperScore. So I appreciate the comments here that I'm seeing in the chat, and although I appreciate any kudos that are sent my way, I do want to focus everybody's thoughts on the wonderful and very skilled musicians who have created this material, which it's my pleasure to be able to show off here in SuperScore. So that said, and seeing no further questions, I'd like to wish everybody who is celebrating Thanksgiving formally to have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And for those of you who live in other areas of the world, I hope that you have some good things in your lives for which to give thanks this week as well. And I'll look forward myself to a wonderful holiday season upcoming, and I hope it's a wonderful and a blessed one for all of you as well. So we will be having many more webinars on material that's available in SuperScore. I hope you will stay in touch with us. And until the next time, I look forward to seeing you again someday in cyberspace. Have a good week.